In solo leveling, after the Hunter Guild strike team walked into the middle of the boss room of an A-rank dungeon filled with high orcs, the leader of the squad, Sun Ki-hoon, thought to himself that if an army of high orcs this size were to make it out the gate, then they would be able to destroy a small city before even the highest-ranking hunters came to stop them, thinking that they must at least defeat this boss. But seeing the four beasts guarding him looking all intimidating, was it even possible to get past the guards and unalive the shaman? The random hunters scared shitless thought to themselves that once Ki-hoon gave them the signal, they would attack at once, with their target being the shaman. But as the boss started removing his mask, he asked, "Do you fear me, humans?" Projecting an immense wave of aura, causing the hunters to hallucinate themselves, getting riddled with holes, draining even the last hope they had in their minds. Gina, in absolute terror, questioned how he was able to wield such powerful magic, as the other guy beside her asked how they're even supposed to fight this guy. Even Lee Bora, as she was bleeding out of her eyes, stated that he was in a league of his own. Compared to him, she was nothing but a third-rate magician. Ki-hoon then asked why? Why would he bring them all here when his warriors could have unalived them on the spot? He responded saying that it was for fun, and that for the remaining time inside the dungeon, he would entertain his soldiers by unaliving them one by one. But however, he said as he was putting his mask on, that there seemed to be a strange being among them while looking at Drippy Woo's direction. Ki-hoon could only stare down in horror, asking himself if that was it. Just for fun, only being used as entertainment. They didn't even think about them as ops in the first place. To them, their lives were just toys that they could play with and throw away whenever they pleased. Ki-hoon suddenly shouted, "Now!" telling everyone to charge, but he would finally realize the harsh reality that his teammates were too terrified to even move a muscle. He knew then and there that there was no way out of this alive, suddenly leaping towards the dungeon boss with all his might. The shaman then activated the spell, Hymn of Protection, creating a barrier right in front of him blocking the attack, sending him crashing to the floor. And as he laid there helpless, the shaman told him he was nothing but a foolish human, suddenly activating his spell of levitation, lifting Ki-hoon into the air. He then drew his finger downward, activating the spell Gravity Acceleration, smashing him into the ground with incredible power. Oh, he knew that he was completely fucked, as the shaman then activated the levitation spell, lifting him again into the air and then slamming him into the ground, again, and again. The hunters could only stand there in terror, watching as their leader was getting thrown around like a rag. But as Ki-hoon plummeted into the ground for the last time, he suddenly disappeared in an instant, surprising the boss monster. Drippy Woo then landed onto the ground, and as he laid there covered in his own blood, he told Ki-hoon that he knew this dungeon belonged to the Hunters Guild, so he's not supposed to interfere. But as it stands, these high orcs would be slaughtering his strike squad. The shaman then signaled to one of his guards as Drippy Woo told him to let him ask him one thing. "Do you give me permission to unalive all of the beasts inside this dungeon?" The guardian high orc then winded his axe for a powerful blow. But Drippy Woo effortlessly extended his arm behind him, activating his power of authority, clutching the orc in place, lifting it into the sky, and slamming him into the ground with immeasurable strength. He then said that he would ask him once again, did he have permission to take care of all the beasts inside this dungeon? A ray of hope finally fell upon his eyes, telling Drippy Woo, please, I beg you, begging him to save his team. As half of the orc's body stuck to the ceiling like a mosquito, the shaman expelled his aura, saying what an interesting abilities he had for a human, but how much longer did he think his little tricks would keep working on them? Drippy Woo just stood there, saying that this was the first time he's ever felt an energy this strong. The boss monster started laughing, saying that that shouldn't come as a surprise for him. Rizzy Woo then stated that he was sorry to say, but this was a really terrible matchup. For you, of course, not me. Come forth, shadows, he uttered, scaring the shit out of a random hunter as he watched black goo raise from the ground. And like the max-level aura farmer he is, Drippy Woo had both Igris and Iron stand behind him. He summoned his entire army as he then stood there aura farming like usual. A vehicle then parked outside of the gate as the miners working on the scene shouted that the hunters from the surveillance team had arrived, making them question why they were here, saying that something was about to go down. Woo Jinchul stared toward the gate, questioning why Rizzy-Woo applied to become a minor, and for 2 days at that. There was no denying that my glorious king was an S rank, saying that he wished he would be more careful since all of his actions could now be scrutinized. The leader of the mining team then approached Woo Jinchul, asking what brought the surveillance agents down over here. He responded saying that they've received word that Mr. Aura Farmer joined the mining team, asking if they could tell them where he was. The miner, surprised since Mommy Cha asked about him a couple hours ago, asked if the young man had done something wrong. A random miner in the back said that he knew it, telling him he told him that if someone like him didn't become a hunter, then he must have been out there unaliving people, adding that when he turned around and smiled at him, he saw evil in his eyes. Boy, did it send a chill down his spine. Just thinking about it is giving him the creeps. Jinchul then asked where he was, making the team leader say he was currently inside the gate, explaining that their porter didn't show up, and since nobody wanted to cover for them, Drippy-Woo volunteered to go inside along the strike squad. First he was a miner and now a porter. He really is peculiar, he thought to himself. The miner asked what the fuss was all about, saying that Mommy Cha went inside the gate just now looking for her husband, surprising Jinchul. The other miner started yapping again, saying that he either did something wrong or unalived someone. He knew that he was someone capable of committing a crime. Jinchul pulled his glasses up with his middle finger like a nerd, saying they would find out about it tomorrow on the news. As the surveillance team headed toward the gate, the miners started talking amongst themselves as the yapper miner said there was always something off about him, but the other miners disagreed, saying he didn't seem that way. A flash of energy suddenly engulfed Jinchul, breaking his stupid glasses, making him ask, "What the hell is this?" saying he sensed a malicious energy. A brand new pair of shades magically appeared on his face, saying that it was impossible, but just for a split second, it felt like his body was being ripped to pieces. The agents then pulled out gate reading equipment, stating that it was over 90,000. This revelation shocked Woo Jinchul, saying this was an A-rank gate of the absolute highest level, and that the association must have miscalculated the gate's mana level. If a strike squad was formed based on the rank posted by the association, then they've got a potential crisis on their hands. But luckily, 2 S ranks already went inside, so it should be fine, but they must enter at once. A high orc corpse laid on the ground as Mommy Cha asked if Sun Ki-hoon's team really managed to unalive them. Just how were they able to defeat all of these, I wonder. She suddenly sensed an overwhelming amount of mana, making her drop her hat to tie up her ponytail, saying if these mana waves were really coming from the boss room, then not a single person from Ki-hoon's team will be able to survive. Shadow soldiers emerged from the ground as my glorious aura farming trio just stood there ready to engage the rest of the orcs. Not even worried about his earlier display of power, the dungeon boss went on to ask how he planned on fighting against his army with just a couple of soldiers. Drippy-Woo just smiled, saying that he was going to regret looking down on he and his shadows. He then activated the Skill Monarch's domain, engulfing the center of the stage with nothing but his shadow. Shadow soldiers fighting within the shadow of their summoner would receive a 50% stat increase. This was a new job-specific skill he obtained after reaching level 70 at the Demon Castle. His shadows had become way stronger since then. Hunters witnessing what was going on couldn't believe their eyes, as a random hunter said that it didn't make any sense, since not even he could summon more than 2 beasts at once. I think he's a little jealous, not gonna lie. Lee Bora, in utter shock, asked herself how a human being was capable of wielding such dark magic. The shaman, not wanting to waste any time, asked the other orcs what they were waiting for, telling them to attack. The beast suddenly rushed toward the hunters like a stampede of animals at incredible speed, making Iron Roar, activating the skill shout of provocation. But seeing as the ops could not be provoked due to their skill level being too high, made Iron hella angry, as he then lifted his axe into the sky, slashing through the orcs in an instant like a knife cutting through butter. But he wasn't the only one who was locked in, as Igris, using his master's aura farming skill, turned his sword facing upward, and as a group of high orcs attempted to jump him as he was standing still, he suddenly sliced every single one of them through their midsection with immeasurable speed. At the other side of the battlefield, a pair of high orcs extended their axes backward for an attack, but Drippy-Woo wasn't playing around, easily cutting them down in the fraction of a second. Another orc suddenly came from behind, but Drippy-Woo effortlessly sliced his head in half as he leaped into the air. The way he moved surprised the onlookers, as Han Semi added that he was just like their vice leader, referring to Mommy Cha. And as Drippy-Woo rushed straight for the remaining orcs, the hunters could only ask themselves why such a powerful hunter volunteered to be just a mere porter. He thought to himself that except for Iron, Igris, and Tank, the rest of his soldiers were around the same level as B-rank hunters, meaning they get destroyed 3 to 4 times before they're even able to defeat a single high orc. The orc's army was also more than 3 times the size of his, so he had to defeat as many of them as he possibly could. A sudden explosion erupted in an instant after the spell Hymn of the Fire Dragon was used, making Jinwoo quickly turn around, shocked by the sudden destruction of his soldiers. The Shaman King, learning from Jinwoo's aura farming ability, said it was foolish of him to act high and mighty when his little puppets were doing all the work. But isn't that exactly what Lil Bro's doing as well? Jinwoo looked dead serious, telling him to speak for himself, since his shadows could regenerate infinitely as long as he had the mana. The shaman responded saying it didn't matter if they could regenerate, since he would run out of mana sooner or later, and at the speed his warriors destroyed his shadows, it would milk him dry. Jinwoo suddenly lunged at him saying he was going to die before that even happened. But the shaman activated Hymn of Protection, blocking his attack, saying there was no use. And while he wasted his time with him, his soldiers would continue to decrease in numbers. Jinwoo landed on his feet asking if he was sure about that, saying he's got some pretty strong shadows over there too, so he shouldn't be worried about his mana reserves right now. The shaman then activated the spell Hymn of Blazing Fire, saying he would once again destroy his soldiers with a single blow, bombarding the arena with constant explosions. Seeing the engulfing flames, he thought that the boss was definitely stronger than Big Boy Vulcan and the undead Metis. Though Metis was able to control thousands of undead, his defenses were weak, and on the other hand, the shaman Kargalgan's defenses were exceptionally strong along his sorcery. To top it off, behind him, there's over 100 orcs waiting for him. He was grossly outnumbered, yet he still had to fight them in hand-to-hand combat. But fortunately, this wasn't the job change quest, meaning the circumstances were different this time around, summoning his inventory. He was able to use potions here, meaning he could replenish his mana whenever he wanted to. He didn't want to drink too many of them, so he'll make it short the spectacle he was about to show him. He would show him the true powers of a necromancer. Wakey, wakey. And out of a high orc's corpse, a hand arose, turning the orc into a shadow soldier.